Okay, so I don't know if I am fine.
Yep, you're fine. All right. Hello, everyone. I know that our participants are now joining it. It's 5:30. We will begin momentarily.
Hola, buenas noches a todos. Vamos a esperar algunos momentos para poder empezar.
All right, we are going to begin.
Muy bien,
And
vamos a empezar.
we'll have some introductions at the beginning and allow for our interpreter to work. And then we will explain how interpretation is going to be working for this meeting.
Tenemos algunas introducciones y después vamos a hacer una pausa para darles las instrucciones de cómo poder escuchar la interpretación en español.
So good evening, everyone. My name is Holly Boki. I am the Family and Community Partnership Coordinator for the school district.
Hola, buenas noches a todos. Mi nombre es Holly Boki y soy la coordinadora familiar y de la comunidad del distrito de Clover Park.
And I am joined by Dr. Diane Carver, who is the Director of Career and College Readiness. And together, sorry, Beatrice, go ahead.
Y voy a estar acompañada por Diane Carver, que es la encargada del área de colegio y carreras aquí en el distrito.
And together we have been bringing monthly updates and tips and information on helping you get to your goal of going to college.
Y cada mes nosotros estamos trayendo presentaciones con diferentes temas para ayudarlos a ustedes en el proceso para pasar a colegios y universidades.
Joining us tonight as our interpreter is Beatrice Villarreal, who is the Family Involvement Coordinator at Clover Park High School.
La persona que va a estar interpretando para ustedes soy yo, Beatriz Villarreal. Yo trabajo en la Escuela Preparatoria de Clover Park.
Before we introduce our guest speakers, I'm going to explain how interpretation will work.
Antes de que introduzcamos a las personas que van a hablar el día de hoy y nos van a hacer la presentación, les voy a explicar cómo va a funcionar la herramienta de la interpretación.
So at the bottom of your screen, if you move your mouse a little bit, there will be a little world icon that will come up.
Si ustedes mueven el mouse o el ratón un poquito, en la parte de abajo van a ver ustedes algunos dibujitos ahí y van a poder observar la figura de un mundo. Ahí ustedes le van a dar clic y van a escoger la opción del idioma, que sería en este caso el español.
All right, so now you have your directions. I am going to start our interpretation.
Muy bien, ahora que ustedes tienen la dirección de cómo hacerlo, entonces vamos a empezar con la interpretación.
All right, let's see if that worked. Sometimes it does. Yep, it did. Great. All right. So now it's time for me to introduce our guest speakers. So joining us tonight is Josh Bellinger. He is a college-bound regional officer, and he is joined by Christina Winstead from the 12th year campaign for the Washington Student Achievement Council. So Josh and Christina, we're thrilled to have you both here, and we will let you start your presentation.
Thank you so much. I am excited to be here tonight. I just wanted to obviously let you guys know that I am the College Bound Regional Officer, and I work for an organization called the Washington College Access Network. And on this first slide, it's really, really cool because you get to see both of the organizations that are tied towards the College Bound Scholarship. And it's a great opportunity. I'm excited to share this information with you. But before I do, I wanted to pass it off to my colleague, Christina Winstead.
Hi, good evening. I'm so excited to have you join us tonight. My name is Christina Winstead. I work with the Washington Student Achievement Council, and paying for college is one of my favorite things. Not actually paying for college, but helping students find money to pay for college. And scholarships are a huge part of the puzzle of paying for college. So thank you so much for having me here tonight. Today, we're going to learn about scholarships. We're going to learn about the College Bound Scholarship. Some of your students may already have a scholarship. It's awesome. They may have signed up for something in middle school. So cool. And then we're going to talk about when students should apply for scholarships, where to find scholarships, how to apply for those scholarships, and of course, some help and resources. So scholarships, basically, they are offered by organizations to help pay for college. So this is called what we affectionately call gift aid. I love gift aid because it means you don't have to pay it back. It's a gift. And so this can be based on academic merit. It can be based on talent. It can be based on a lot of different things. The thing to take away from this right now is there's so many scholarships out there. You just have to find them and apply for them. If you don't apply for them, you won't get them. And so we are here to help you find and identify those scholarships for you.
Thank you, Christina. Well, first, I want to start off with the first opportunity, and the reason why I say opportunity is because the College Bound Scholarship is a little bit more of a non-traditional scholarship in the sense of applying for a scholarship based off of merit and the things that obviously Christina had said. So I want to talk a little bit about tonight about the College Bound Scholarship. Now, here's the cool thing about the College Bound Scholarship is it is an opportunity that you possibly would be able to receive funding for tuition. So what it is, okay, it's a state program and it's an early commitment of state financial aid to eligible students, okay? So how it works, it's extremely important for you to understand how the College Bound Scholarship works because it's more untraditional than traditional. It combines with other state financial aid to cover the average cost of tuition, and that's tuition at public rates. Along with that, the College Bound will also cover some fees, some of those technology fees, some of the fees that universities have for students. It will also cover that. Along with tuition at public rates, some fees, it will also cover a small book allowance. Now, those of you, if you're a student on the call, I tell students when I talk to them all the time that when you're in high school, usually you're not having to say, okay, well, where am I going to get my books? Because that's just something that you get, right? But when you go to college, books are something that you're gonna need, but they're gonna cost additional funds. So getting an extra money for your books is really, really important. It's a really, really good highlight of the College Bound Scholarship, along with those tuition and fees that it also is going to cover. Along with that, so we're gonna talk a little bit about kind of on these bullet points right here, what it does cover and what it does not cover. Okay, so the first thing I want to point out is that when we talk about the average cost of tuition, we're talking about at public college rates, meaning that is more of your state colleges. A couple of state colleges is the University of Washington, Washington State University, Eastern Washington, Central Washington, Western Washington. So those are a couple examples of your average state when they're talking about public rates, where they're talking about these state colleges. Okay, so what that means on top of that is it's not just four-year college. So I just named four-year schools. When you think about state schools, you're also going to encompass your two-year colleges and your technical colleges. The reason why that's so important and so huge is because average statistics of most of our students in the state of Washington are attending all three and more so two-year and technical colleges. So that is important because if you are having to be in a position to where you are possibly being at a place where you can live at home, or you have a place where you can live, you can actually go to school tuition free, meaning that it's similar to high school where you're not having to sit and pay for your classes. Guys, that's a huge opportunity, and I want to make sure I point that out. If you go to a four-year institution and you see the little column right here on the left-hand side of the screen, excuse me, on the right-hand side of the screen, it talks about what it does not cover. So if you're going to a four-year college, things like housing, your meal plan, those are separate things. So the College Bound is not going to cover those specific things. So you're going to need to listen to the rest of this presentation, because before you leave today, you are going to be left with a myriad of resources for you to cover your housing, your meal plan, your transportation, and other fees. Okay, but the first thing I wanted to let you guys know is what is out there from the state to help you cover your tuition. So average cost of tuition, some college fees, and a small book allowance is what the College Bound Scholarship covers. So a couple of you guys are on this call and you're thinking, okay, like Mr. Bellinger or Josh, like you're talking to me about this, but this is too good to be true. Is there any requirements that I need to have as a student to be able to get these funds? The answer is yes. It's called the College Bound Pledge. And if anybody on this call has ever done any cleaning, this pledge bottle in the corner is your best friend, okay? I use it all of the time because I have kids. So here we go. This is the requirements for the College Bound Scholarship. So the first thing that you have to do, and these are like crazy, like really, really hard requirements. Totally joking, okay? You have to graduate from a Washington State high school. I think if you're in the Clover Park School District, that's probably a check mark. And you have to graduate. The key is graduate with at least a 2.0 cumulative GPA or better. You have to graduate with that 2.0 cumulative GPA. On top of that, no felony convictions. I know that obviously all of us are in good standing. We're doing good things. We're hanging out with good people. So that's not going to be a big issue for us. And the last one is become income eligible. This is an income eligibility scholarship. So I want to make sure that I make that very, very clear. Now, here's the most important part. So you are going to get your funding through your information that you put on the FAFSA or the WASFA. And now I will say this, and Christina, I know you'll also touch on this as well, but we've talked about the FAFSA and the WASFA, and we haven't talked about what financial aid is. So I want to make sure that you understand that state financial aid has two applications. One is a federal application, which is the FAFSA, and then there's a state application, which is the WASFA. So those, hopefully by now, if you are a senior, hopefully by now you have filled out either one of those two. Yes, I said one, you can't fill out both. There's one application that you will fill out determined upon your eligibility, and we'll talk about what that is. And here's the important part is you have to do that in order to get your funding. The last part is you have to enroll in an eligible institution, and I'll explain what an eligible institution is, within 1 year of graduating from high school. So if you raise your hand like I do, and you're just like, hey, whew, man, I did it. I passed the test. I'm going to graduate from high school. I need a break. You can take a break as long as it's 1 year break. And then after that, you need to make sure that you get back into school so that you can use your college bound funding. So graduate from Washington State High School with a 2.0 GPA or better, stay out of trouble, and then fill out your FAFSA and WASFA as a senior in high school, and every single year you are also in college. And then obviously you can enroll into an eligible institution, and those are going to be right here on this slide. Thank you so much, Christina. So eligible institutions. So there is over, and this is actually a little bit of an old slide because there's over 68 institutions now. It was 66, now it's 68 schools where you can use your funding. The one thing I want to mention to you, there's 2-year colleges on this page. There's technical colleges on this page. There's non-traditional programs that are on this page. And there's your 4-year colleges. There's public and private schools. The one thing I want to talk about on this slide is if you see your Pacific Lutheran University or you see your Seattle University, those, Gonzaga is another one that's on here. those are private institutions, okay? Private four-year institutions where College Bound is covering, remember at the beginning, I said at public college rates, state colleges. So what you're gonna wanna do is when I said a 2.0 GPA, you're going to wanna make sure that you have a little bit higher of a GPA if you're deciding that you wanna go to a private four-year college. And I'll be honest with you too, the higher your GPA, the more opportunities you will have for merit-based scholarships and for more additional college-bound scholarship funding. Private institutions, what they do is they put their own spin on the college-bound scholarship. So what they will do is they'll call it Falcon-bound. For example, at Seattle Pacific University, it's their version of college-bound, but it covers their full cost of tuition, which is a little bit higher than it would be at a public school. It's about $35,000 that you would be able to have paid for through College Bound. Same statistics, but just a little bit of a higher GPA that you're going to want to make sure you have going into a private four-year institution. All right, so here's a couple things that I want to point out also about the College Bound Scholarship. So the first one I've already talked about. You must enroll at college within 1 year of high school graduation. Okay, so if I have seniors on the call, I want to really make sure that that's clear, that you can take a break, but please, please, please make sure you, within 1 year of high school graduation, you are enrolled into college classes so you don't lose your funding. Another thing is you have a 5-year window. Okay, so for example, if your class of 2021 right now, you're going to have it until 2026 to be able to use your college-bound scholarship opportunity, okay? So what that means is that you have 5 years, but it's 4 years of funding, okay? So you have 12 quarters or eight semesters, 4 years to be able to use your college-bound funding. So you have 5 years to use 4 years of college-bound funding. So that's important because that's including that 5 year. If you take a gap, if you go straight into school, obviously then it's just 4 years, obviously straight through. If it takes you a little longer, here's another thing I want to really plug. If it takes you a little longer to get your bachelor's degree, then you want to listen to the rest of her presentation, because she's going to set you up with some more opportunities that are going to set you up for no matter how long you're possibly in school as an undergrad. Okay, so it's extremely important for you to know that information as well. The last thing is, two more things. Be in good standing from your college and maintain your GPA. So most of the time it's going to be about a 2.0, but they have things like honor code. And when students ask me what honor code is, really things like cheating or things like breaking the rules, living in a dormitory and not following those rules. Those are going to be more of your violations that the university is going to set in place, and you're going to have to maintain those in order to maintain your eligibility. The last one is, once again, there's 2 financial aid applications. There is the FAFSA, which is federal, and the WASFA, which is the Washington State's application. Every single year, October 1st will be your Christmas. Okay, October 1st is when that application opens. So it's extremely important for you to fill that out every single year on October 1st. You should be pounding on your mom or dad. It is almost October and we need to fill this thing out so that we can get our funding for school. Okay, now that's everything pretty much about the College Bound Scholarship. I know I've seen the chat box moving a little bit, so I want to make sure. I want to talk about one more opportunity, and then I would love to, are we going to do questions at the end? I want to make sure I got that right.
We can do questions at the end. We're trying to answer some
perfect.
that we can easily do in the Q&A, but some we want everyone to hear, and we'll bring those up, okay?
Sounds good. Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, and then so here's another state program that I want to mention that is extremely important for you to know. Okay, so when you fill out that state financial aid application, there is some state funding. The College Bound Scholarship is one of those. Okay, now here's another opportunity. It's called the Washington College Grant. Now, whenever I talk about scholarships, I also talk about grants, because when you think about the 4 categories under the umbrella of what financial aid is, the other 2 is work study and loans, but the first 2 is grants and scholarships. Grants and scholarships do not need to be paid back. It's either somebody granting you money for school Or a scholarship is you apply for school and then somebody grants you that money to use towards your education. So the Washington College Grant is a part of that. It used to be called the State Need Grant, but now it's called the Washington College Grant. And the cool thing about that is an expansion of funding. So this is extremely important. I really am excited about this because some of you guys came into the state of Washington after middle school. When we were talking about the College Bound Scholarship, that's one you had to do in middle school. So if you weren't around in middle school and you just got to the state of Washington in high school, this is an opportunity directly for you. Okay, if parents' income might have went up slightly and you're not college bound eligible, guess what? There's a Washington College Grant that has also possible opportunities for funding. Okay, so I'm gonna just go back over this kind of quickly, but I wanna make sure I explain it very, very well. So what does it cover? It covers almost similar to the college bound. What it covers is it's a grant. Okay, so that's the first thing I wanna say, it's a grant. So it's covered, it's covered full tuition at any approved eligible state public college or university, including technical community colleges. Okay, so that's extremely important for you to know. So that's similar language to the college bound scholarship. Okay, it's going to be a tuition scholarship. Now, this is extremely important for you to understand too. Okay, who is eligible? So now if you look in the kind of the first paragraph I put up here, a family of 4 is going to be eligible for either a full award or a partial award. Okay, a partial award is going to be up to $97,000 for a family of 4. Now that is a big jump from around $56,000 for college bound for a family of 4. Okay, so as I said before, if income has gone up a little bit, the Washington College Grant is really a really good fill-in opportunity for a lot of students. A family of 5 for partial funding is going to go all the way up to $112,500. So that is a huge opportunity. You're going to ask me, how do I get eligible? How do I apply for this, right? What do I need to do? Sign me up for this one. Well, similar to as I said before, with the College Bound Scholarship, you have to fill out one of two state financial aid applications. The first one is either the FAFSA or the WASFA. Once you fill that out, it is going to automatically put you into this specific program based off of your income that you state on that form. So it's extremely important. If you are a senior on this call and you have not started filling out the financial aid paperwork, either the FAFSA or the WASFA, get going on it right now because this funding is here. It is here for your students. This is an expansion of state funding for more students and families for you to attend 4-year college, 2-year college, or technical college. This whole myth of, hey, college is not affordable is a myth, okay? There is programs out there, but you have to do financial aid paperwork. It's extremely important for you to follow those specific steps, okay? Now, the last thing I want to mention about the Washington College Grant, okay, as I said before, you don't need to do anything, but it's extremely important that you do your financial aid paperwork every single year. October 1st is when the applications both come out, the FAFSA and the WASFA, and extremely important that on that date or quickly soon after, okay, it could be the 2nd or the 3rd, that you start filling out that information. There's a student section portion, and then there's a parent portion, okay? So you gotta make sure you do both of those portions of that. If you need additional resources, we will make sure we give those to you before you leave today. That's it for my portion of today for state funding. I'm so excited to hear Christina go into expanded scholarship opportunities that are going to be a little bit more your traditional scholarship opportunities. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Josh. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about other scholarships. So while you're looking at the Washington College Grant, you may wonder, do I need scholarships? I guess I'll just get financial aid. You always want to apply for scholarships, but for families who are trying to figure out how much they may get for financial aid, you can use this resource. This is the financial aid calculator. You enter some basic information in about your income and household size, and what it'll end up doing is give you an estimate of how much you may be eligible for Washington state aid, as well as Washington state aid, as well as some other types of funding, federal grants, things like that. And so I've just put that right into the chat so you can use that tool for yourselves. So when should our students apply for scholarships? There's a lot of scholarships out there and they're offered year round. You are going to find that there's like different little scholarship cycles. So you're going to see more applications open up in late winter, early spring, sometimes in the fall. But summertime usually isn't the best time for scholarships, but you want to keep looking. For parents and caregivers and supporters of students, I encourage you. The most critical thing is staying organized when you're applying for scholarships. You don't want to miss a deadline and you don't want to apply for a scholarship you don't qualify for. So I encourage caregivers, parents, and supporters to help a student make a list of all the scholarships they'd like to apply for. I'm a big dork, so a spreadsheet works really well for me. When I was in college, what I did is I created a spreadsheet of all the scholarships I was interested in. I listed their due dates and what the requirements of the scholarship were. And then every other weekend while I was in college, I ate a pizza, yeah, the whole thing. And I did scholarship applications. So I would spend all weekend just eating pizza and working on scholarships, and a friend would join me. And I encourage you to get your students' friends involved in this. Students, if you're doing this process, I have found y'all don't even humble brag about yourselves. This is the time to brag. If you're not willing to brag about yourself, you need your friend to read your essay because they'll brag about you. This is the time to make sure you're not missing anything in your essays. A friend is really good at adding to your essays. Have your friends read your essays. Have your people who are involved in your life, your parents, your caregivers, read your essays so that you don't omit anything that might help you get that scholarship. So what I did is I would do that every other weekend. Between financial aid and scholarships, I paid $3,000 for my bachelor's degree. And it's because I did this process so frequently. Not every single time will you get a scholarship. Let me put that out there. But man, the ones that you do are amazing. And so I encourage you, apply for a lot of scholarships. The worst case scenario here is that you have to turn down some scholarships. That's the worst case scenario. But if you don't apply for them, you won't get them. So you're going to apply year-round for scholarships. And you're going to look at the different types of scholarships. So you're going to find that there are merit-based, income-based, renewable, and one-time. Those are kind of the four main categories when it comes to scholarships. Merit-based are based upon sometimes your GPA, as well as sometimes other activities. Income-based is going to be based upon your family's income and ability to pay. Renewable scholarships are scholarships that you apply for, and they sometimes will allow you to renew them for multiple years while you're in school. There are scholarships out there that when you get it once, you can renew it for 4 years, which is awesome. And then there are one-time scholarships where you apply for that scholarship and then you will receive the funds, but it's only once. Now, the big question, where do you find scholarships? And I promise you, I'm putting a bunch of links in the chat here of all the places you're going to find scholarships. So you're going to find a bunch of links here in just a second. Oh, they all kind of ran together a little bit, but you will find scholarships through the Washboard. The Washboard is a Washington-based scholarship warehouse. What they do, and we'll talk more about it, is it matches you to your scholarships after building a profile. We have resources at gearup.wa.gov to help you know how to fill out scholarships, but also to find scholarships. There's some really cool tools here to help you understand the pitfalls of scholarships and what to be mindful of. Get Schooled has great resources as well as scholarships. There's also Big Future, College Greenlight, Unigo, Scholarship Junkies, which sometimes has assistance in writing your essays. And then your best resource in this world is going to be your school counselors. They know about specific scholarships for your school. So if there's a scholarship that's specific to your school, typically they will know about it and they are amazing. So I talked about the Washboard, but I wanted to explain it a little bit more. So the biggest thing for me when I was looking for scholarships was just the daunting task of all of these scholarships and how to figure out which one to apply for. What this tool does is you create a profile and it matches you to the scholarships. I affectionately call this the eHarmony of scholarship sites. So what happens is you build a profile and it matches you to the scholarships, but I think it's even better because we vet the scholarships to make sure they are not scams. And so when you're applying for these scholarships, you know that they are a legitimate scholarship. Now, wait a minute. There's some questions here I can tell. There are non-legitimate scholarships? Yes, there are. If any scholarship ever asks you to pay money to apply, I'm gonna let you know right now, that's a scam. You're getting scammed. Sorry. It's one of those things, I've seen it happen enough times now with students where they have paid money to try to apply for a scholarship. And then all of a sudden they're like, I never heard anything back. I sent them the $30 check. You just paid for someone else's scholarship. That's all that just happened, is you just paid someone's free scholarship of hustling. So you want to make sure when you're applying for scholarships and for financial aid, both of those processes are free. You should never pay to apply for financial aid, whether it's the FAFSA or the WAFSA, or for scholarships. If someone is trying to charge you for these processes, I encourage you to ask why. They are free for a reason. It's about equity and access. If you're struggling with filling out a financial aid application, please feel free to reach out to me or any of our partners to make sure you have support, but do not pay. There's a lot of people out there who are charging $60 an hour, $80 for an event, and we want to make sure that you're keeping that money for you to go to school. So now I also have students ask me, how do I go to school if I'm undocumented? There's a lot of options in Washington State. We are very fortunate to have multiple ways for students to apply for Washington State aid if they're undocumented or not. We have the WAFSA, which Josh talked about. So if you've lived in Washington State for 3 years prior to graduation from high school and stay in Washington after, and you're going to a Washington State school and you are not a US citizen, you may qualify for Washington State financial aid despite citizenship status. In Washington, we have access to education no matter what your status is, because we know it is critical to educate all of our youth. The real talk here is, students, listen, you're going to take over this world in a very short period of time. And we want to make sure that you have the education you want to be in a career that you love, earning a livable wage, because we are borrowing this world from you. And until you take it over in this very short period of time, we want to make sure you have access to all of this so that you can graduate with the smallest amount of debt possible, or my goal for you, which is no debt. So if you ever get stuck, you're going to reach out and ask for support. We have a lot of scholarships for undocumented students specifically. This Beyond Dreaming Scholarship Resource Guide, which is one of the links I put in there, is amazing. They're updating it right now, but it has a guide on how to apply for scholarships. And there's 45 pages of scholarships in state and out of state that have no citizenship requirements at all. If you are undocumented and you are worried about paying for college, don't worry, there's a lot of options in Washington State. And if you're concerned about applying for financial aid because you're worried about your parents' status, financial aid is based upon your own status. If your parents are undocumented, it's okay. You can still apply for financial aid and there's lots of options. We're here to help you. So these are my steps for applying for scholarships. Number one, I think the first step before we even start anything is to get a bunch of chocolate. Just get some junk food. It helps. Then you're going to go ahead and you're going to start searching for scholarships by using the sites that I already gave you. But some things you might not check would be things like the college that you want to go to. They'll have institutional scholarships. Those are funds raised by the college to provide to students going to that school. They're a great resource. If you just type scholarships and your school's name, typically you'll find the website for the school that you want to go to. And some schools even have appointments you can make with a scholarship person at that school to help you with the process. There are also scholarships that are automatically awarded to students when they apply to that college, and you want to inquire about those. The other place for scholarships, other than that scholarship searches sites that we've provided, would be looking at organizations. I know my bank offers one. Professional organizations also offer scholarships. So if you know that you want to be a counselor, then the American Association of Counselors is probably going to have some sort of scholarship for undergraduates, sometimes for graduate school. So you want to check all those other places. I've even had students who have gone to businesses and said, hey, the business down the street, they're offering a scholarship and you're not. I think you should offer one. I had a student do that and then they got the scholarship. So if there's no scholarship, it's okay to ask. The thing I encourage you to do is to be a good advocate for yourself. Ask lots of questions, research those scholarships, make sure that when you're making that list of scholarships, that you follow through and finish the applications. Sometimes it can be hard because, you have to write an essay for some of them. But what you'll do is you're going to create one amazing essay, and sometimes you can retool it to other scholarships, and that's fine. Just make sure you're changing the name of that scholarship on the letter. So you're going to create that list of all your scholarships, the requirements. Does it have an essay? Do I have to do a solo for musical? Do I have to submit a portfolio? What is the requirement? And then what is the deadline? Here's my talk about deadlines. They're real, so real. If it says it has to be postmarked by a certain date, it has to be postmarked by a certain date. Some places occasionally will have wiggle room, but a lot of scholarships I've worked with have a committee that has to agree upon changing any sort of date or rules. So I've had students who've missed out on scholarships because they were just one day late. And to be perfectly honest, I even missed a scholarship because I didn't sign the renewable paperwork on time. It was the most expensive. That's the $3,000 right there. So I encourage you, make sure that you're meeting your deadlines and that you're applying. If you kind of fit the requirements of scholarship, still apply. Because the thing is, especially in the last year, is I found a lot of scholarships going unawarded. And what that means is no one applies for the scholarship and the donor thinks that there's no unmet need, and so they stop donating. I had several this year that went unawarded. There are scholarships out there, you just have to apply for them. In fact, there was one at an event I went to a couple years ago. It was a soccer scholarship. And it had literally, I saw these people walking by a table and no one stopped to pick it up. And I thought, that's gotta be a really hard scholarship. So I walked over and asked, hi, I see you have a scholarship. Can I take a look at it? And they're like, you're a little old. And I'm like, I know. It's not for me. I just wanted to see. The scholarship was 4 questions, you guys. It was, what is your name? Super easy. Do you play soccer? So right there, that tells me I don't even have to play your sport to get your money. What have you learned playing soccer, and how will you bring those skills to college? And so I asked them, because no one had applied. I said, so if I turned in a paper saying, hi, I'm Christina Winstead, sports ball, I guess so. I think I'd learn teamwork and I will bring that to college. You know what they told me? They said, we would give you the money right now. It's $500. No one's applied and the deadline's tomorrow. Be the student that applies. You won't get every single one, but you might get some, and they all add up to reduce your debt for education. So you're going to apply for those scholarships. Be mindful if it has not a postmark deadline, but we have to receive it by a certain date. Please be mindful that USPS is backed up a little bit and you want to give yourself a little extra time to get it to them. Most scholarships are going to require just an online application, but some will request transcripts to be sent. So you're going to follow up after you apply for your scholarships. When they send you a letter, they will let you know whether you've received the scholarship or not. You're going to follow up by, if you've received the scholarship, to accept that scholarship and follow the next steps from the scholarship committee. And then the most important thing is to send thank you letters or thank you cards. I know that sounds silly. It's kind of a lost art, but our donors, whenever I'm working with scholarship committee, they love knowing that money helped. A lot of these people donating to scholarships were scholarship recipients themselves. And so they are saying, hey, you know what? Someone helped me when I went to school. I'm going to help someone else. So most of the scholarship applications, especially this year, are available right online. Back in the day, you guys, we had to go through a scholarship drawer. It was a file folder that you'd have to go through paper. Not anymore. Everything's online. Remember, these are free. I'm the most frugal woman in Thurston County. I want to make sure no one's paying for things that they shouldn't have to. These are free applications. You need to follow the instructions. Part of this is like word count. If it says 500 words, whatever the word count is, you need to follow that. Part of it is if you don't follow that, they may disqualify your scholarship application. Some of them will have age requirements. You just want to make sure you're following all the requirements. When you are applying to specific schools, like I said before, apply for those institutional scholarships. Also ask if they have scholarships. Some private schools I've noticed will have scholarships if you go on a campus tour virtually right now, or other things. They have like a $500 credit towards your account. Make sure you're doing all those other things too. It gives you a chance to take a look at the school and also gives you a chance to maybe have a little money for school. And then check with your high school counselors to see what scholarship opportunities are specific to your school. Okay, so this Gear Up site is amazing. I added it into the chat earlier, but what they have here is a tool for you to understand what it's like to be someone who ranks a scholarship. So we took a real scholarship, the Zombie Survival Scholarship. It's a real thing. And so it's an essay where you write about how you would survive the zombie apocalypse. And what we did is we wrote some really good and some really bad essays. And we took a rubric just like they use for ranking these scholarships, and you get to be the scholarship committee. You can read our essays and you can rank them, and then you can see how they were ranked by an actual committee. Some of the scholarship essays that we wrote do not meet the requirements and all these other things, so you have to be very mindful when you're looking, but it helps you look at how they rank scholarships through a rubric. So your next steps, students, this is when you're going to create an inventory of all the things you've been doing. If you're a senior for the last 4 years, clubs, activities, organizations, all the things that you've done in school. Are you working? All the activities. If you can't remember, ask a friend. Then you're going to start that scholarship search. So if you haven't been searching yet and you're a senior, it's time to start now. You'll have plenty of time over break to research. I encourage you to start with 3. Find 3 scholarships that are interesting to you and apply for them. Make that list and a schedule. I'm all about paper, but if put calendar alarms in so you know that you have timeliness when you're turning them in, because if you don't turn them in on time, they won't consider them. And that's what I have about scholarships. I see that we have a bunch of questions, so I'm going to go ahead and start kind of going through, and I've tagged a couple of them. So if that's okay with you guys, is that good?
Yes, please do. And
Okay.
I'll kind of follow up on some of the ones. We have some questions in chat, some in Q&A. So why don't you go for your first one?
So I'm going to start in Q&A and work through those, and then I'll go through chat.
Great.
So the first question I have says, when you say it covers the average cost of tuition at public schools, this is for college bound, I believe, does it mean it won't cover the full tuition cost, for example, University of Washington? So it would cover the full tuition cost of University of Washington, but it wouldn't cover the full tuition cost of a private school like, let's say, Whitman or Whitworth. So it does cover the full cost of a public 4-year at the highest rate, which is UW's. And then the private schools have different scholarships to help the difference. Okay, here's a good question. So if I apply for college bound and my family's income is too high the first year, but it goes down the second year, can I receive my second year? So it's one of those programs that you can go in and out of eligibility, but one of the things I want to preface is, if your family's income has decreased, so if you're filing for financial aid and it's asking for 2019 tax information and your income has decreased from 2019 to 2020, because it's been a rough year for a lot of people financially specifically, you can contact your college after filling out your financial aid application and ask for an adjustment. So you can contact them and say, my income has decreased. And so if you're out of eligibility, your family made too much, but they don't make that now, that's another change that can happen. So I've used, the question is, what about websites like Talio and Niche? Would you recommend these websites as well? I've used Niche, but I've not used Talio. I encourage you to I would look to see, are they asking for money on these websites? Are the scholarships, are they asking you to sign up for any service? Are they trying to charge you anything? Are they trying to get your contact information, whatever it is, before you use some of the websites? But I'm not as familiar with those ones.
I will say, just to add this, Christina, most scholarships require something of you. I mean, an essay, or you need a little work put in to get the big reward. Some of those sites that you just mentioned are simply like almost a raffle.
Yeah.
Your chances are so much better on the sites that Christina and Josh have promoted than they would be on some random hope for the best to get some money.
Definitely. I would start local. Look at all your local scholarships, because that's a smaller pool of students. and then work your way out to state scholarships and then to national scholarships, because that's going to be a larger pool of applicants. But those local scholarships are the ones that are going unawarded right now. I saw a couple from a local bank that didn't get awarded, and a couple other organizations that let me know last year. So be very mindful that students may not be applying for scholarships in the numbers that they were before due to COVID. And so you want to be the person that applies.
Yeah, and can I also add to that too? I would also say that I think local scholarships from the organizations that I've talked to specifically too, they want to give their scholarships locally to kids that live in that community. So they're going to look at your guys' like applications really, really thoroughly, because for them, as Christina said, they were recipients, right? That somebody, it's a pay it forward kind of thing with scholarships, especially with folks that have got to a certain point where they now have the finances to be able to help with scholarships. It's really personal to them to say, hey, there's a similar kid from my community who needs the support. So I definitely have had way more success telling students locally. The national scholarships, definitely. I mean, if you want to be a Coca-Cola kid, you know, by any means, national scholarships are not necessarily, you know, don't not do them. You know what I mean? But at the same time too, I would put a lot more investment into the local scholarships, because those are the folks that really know you. They know your community. Who knows who they know that, oh yeah, oh, that's so-and-so. And they really want to give that money to those students. So
Definitely. Yeah, the local ones are amazing. I received both local and state scholarships and one national. And it was so nice because I met the people for the local scholarship and they told me why they donated. And it's the same reason why I donate to a scholarship now. So it was really cool to meet those people. Okay, the next question, let's see here. If I go to college out of state as a freshman and then for some reason choose to go in state after that, can I still get the Washington or the college bound scholarship? And you already have it from middle school. Here's the thing, if you go to another state and you enroll, it says that you have to enroll in a Washington state college. And so you wouldn't be eligible for it. Now, if your income is still the same as it was when you met the college bound scholarship requirements, when you come back to Washington state, you could apply for the Washington College Grant. And you'll see if it's the same income level, you'll see a pretty decent award there, but you would lose your eligibility for college bound. Okay, sports scholarships. Josh, I'm going to tag you in for sports ball questions.
definitely, let's do it.
So are there any scholarships specifically for sports?
Yes, absolutely. There's definitely those specific scholarships for sports are going to be solely based from the specific institution that are trying to apply to. There is not a community local scholarship. Usually, I mean, there's a couple specific scholar athlete that there's a couple organizations that are looking for athletes who meet certain requirements in the community, and they want to give those students scholarships, but mainly those are going to be from the university specifically. So the first thing I would say is, what specific schools are you looking at, right? And also on top of that, just like merit, just think of it in athletics, your merit is your play, right? The university is going to require you to play sports at that specific school. And being a part of their school, they're going to look for somebody who gives them the talent to be successful. So it's tied in a little bit with athletic ability. So I want to make sure that you understand that as well too. Scholarships for college also too, I want you to think about too, is there's also a big requirement to, whenever you play college athletics, there's a big requirement to where you have to think about your time as a student versus your time to that specific sport. Whereas if you are playing, for example, obviously I'm a football coach. So if you're playing football, you are going to spend a lot of hours on the football field, a lot of hours in the film room doing other specific things. So because of those things, the funds that you're going to get is going to be able to help with school, but you're having a lot more responsibility that I want you to make sure you think about thoroughly before you get into it. Because I've met a lot of specific students that it sounds really, really cool to say that you're a college athlete, but then they look at the kind of everything that is on their plate. Similar to my story as well, everything is on your plate and you have to make a decision as is the money and the responsibility weighing itself out. So, but yes, there is specific scholarships. If you want to get more in detail, obviously, let me know, but there is specific schools that offer scholarships. Division III schools are going to be merit-based also as well. So they would say that like you're able to play sports, like for example, PLU and University of Puget Sound in Tacoma. They both have athletic programs, but you don't have a specific athletic scholarship. You are there to play athletics, but your money, if the institution gives you money, is based off of your GPA, your merit that you have. Division II and then Division I are institutions that can grant actually money for athletic ability.
Thank you so much. I was not raised in a sports household, so I do not know sports as much, but I know there's scholarships out there for them. Just don't ask me to play any indoor kid. I'm like, but there are scholarships for indoor kids too, you guys. Don't worry. There's ones for us indoor kids. Okay, the next question. Where do you find out if you qualify for scholarships with income? The scholarship application will tell you what the income guidelines are going to be. So it may say student must qualify for free or reduced lunch. It doesn't mean that you have to be receiving that at the school. It just means that your income has to be. So they'll tell you what the income guidelines are going to be, if any. Some schools may say that they need what's called your EFC. And that is a calculation from your FAFSA or WAFSA that you can receive. And it's just a calculation number that you put in. And so that's why for some students, you'll say, well, I don't need to apply for financial aid. I'm going to get some scholarships, but we're paying out of pocket. If you're trying to get scholarships, sometimes they require that EFC, which means you need to complete the application so that you can prove that you're not receiving aid from other places, so that you're in a middle income that's not receiving gift aid, but you haven't received any, you don't have the financial ability to pay for college. The next question is, it's in Spanish, but I've translated it over. My question is, the scholarships we're talking about, are they loans or for having good academic studies? So we're talking about both, not the loans, because my goal is that you won't have to take them. But if you do, when you apply for financial aid, that's when they're going to offer you federal loans. And then you can apply also for private loans, which I would put that on the bottom of the list. And so loans will come from a financial aid application. And then these scholarships can be for students who have good, like a high GPA, but also for students, to be very upfront and honest with you, I was not the best high school student. And so I did not think I'd get any scholarships, and I did. And it was not merit-based. They were definitely based on essays I wrote and other things, but never based upon for that first year. Now, once I went to college and I found that I really enjoyed it, my GPA went up. And so then I could apply for other ones. So I tell students, especially younger students, watch that GPA. It's like your credit score. You know, the lower it goes, the more opportunities you're kind of closing off yourself from. Will College Bound give you an adjustment if your family income went down since 2019? So if you qualified for College Bound and you're receiving it and your income has decreased, maybe your income was higher one year and it's decreased, as long as you're staying within the guidelines of receiving College Bound, then you'll be able to receive it. It doesn't mean if your income's decreased even further, unfortunately, it doesn't mean you'll receive more College Bound, but you might receive other types of assistance. What if you're moving out of state? I'm gonna let you know right now, Washington is gorgeous, but I understand when we get all of this rain and we're just basically covered in moss. Don't worry. If you're moving out of state, you won't be able to use College Bound or the Washington College Grant or Washington State funding, but you're going to use the financial aid, the FAFSA, to apply for federal funding to go to schools outside of Washington. No problem. Does a local scholarship mean that you can only use it for a local college? A local scholarship means it's provided by someone local to you, but may have the opportunity to be used at other institutions, not just a local one. The scholarships that are required to be used at a specific school are provided by that school. So local scholarships just means that someone from your local community who's saying, hey, I want you to go out and go to college, we're going to help you pay for it. It's their investment in your community.
And if, can I say something real fast on that too?
Mhm.
And I guess the biggest thing is you have to make sure you look on the application too, because there is some specific local scholarship opportunities from a local person, but they want, because once again, as Christina said earlier, maybe they went to the University of Washington. So this specific scholarship is for a student who is applying and who gets accepted to the University of Washington. So just make sure you look through the scholarship application, because it's usually will state that information if you can stay out of state, or if they would like you to stay more centrally to a certain spot location.
Thank you. The next question is, I'm a Running Start student who will get their high school diploma through the college, not from the high school. Do I qualify for the College Bound Scholarship? Yeah, you received it from an institution, so you still qualify for College Bound. Okay, next one. Where can I find national scholarships? I don't know what school I want to attend yet. Don't worry, if you don't know what school you want to go to, you have 2 tasks right now. If you're a senior, you're going to start researching. Think about, do you want to be in a rural school, in a school in a city? Do you want a large campus, a small campus? How many people do you want in that classroom with you? And does it provide you with your major? That's the biggest thing. Does it offer you the program you want to go into? If you don't know what school you want to go to, they give you 10 spots on the FAFSA to list schools, same with the WAFSA. We know that there's a lot of options. So if you don't know, don't worry. The national scholarships can be found, typically Unigo does a lot of the national scholarships. That Gear Up page has all the national scholarships as well. Okay, is there a search engine suggested on how to find local scholarships other than knocking on doors? So you can use the washboard. That will cover, we try to reach out to as many of the local communities and then check with your counselors as well. Will local scholarships support out-of-state tuition? As long as that scholarship says you can use it outside of the state, yeah. Scholarships for writers, drama, and music. Yes, there are lots of scholarships for the arts. For music, some of those scholarships are going to be blind reads of music. They will send you sheet music. You open it up on camera. You play the music then. Some of them are going to be portfolios. They're going to ask for a portfolio of your work showing your growth as an artist from freshman year of high school through senior year. So you want to keep all of your art. Some of them will ask to write a submission of an essay or a story. So there's all things that you're kind of think about, but there are lots for all these different areas. Let's see here. I'm a senior in high school, but also Running Start. When I apply for a scholarship and grants, what do I put? So you're going to say that you're a high school student, even though you're doing dual credit. And when you apply for college, you're going to be applying as a freshman, because unless you take classes after you graduate high school, you'll be considered a freshman, even though we know that you're a Running Start student and you're not a freshman. Don't worry. They're going to transfer those credits in and you'll be moved up from freshman to whatever level you're at. But you'll put freshman, it's part of the calculations they use for the number of people they admit to the college who are freshmen. Where do you apply for the FAFSA or the WAFSA? I can put those links in the chat. Or actually, Josh, you want to put the links in the chat if you have the ability to? Well,
Yeah, let me do that.
I have so many screens open right now. Is the washboard the best site if your student's going out of state? It has some out of state scholarships, but it's going to be pretty heavy Washington State. Again, with those national ones, try the Gear Up website. That would be a good one. Oh, could you please repeat the 3 main Washington scholarships? So there's the College Bound Scholarship. There's the Washington College Grant, which is not a scholarship, but a type of funding. And then we have I'm trying to think of other, we have several state scholarships that are for Washington State students. Like we have the Washington Opportunity Scholarship. There's a lot of really cool ones. If you're a STEM student, science, technology, engineering, and math, man, there are scholarships out there for you. What if your parents in the military and you have no choice to move and you're already approved? Okay, so there might be a couple options. If you are moving And it's before you graduate from a Washington State school. This is what happened with some of my nephews. Then you lose the college bound scholarship, but you may have like the Washington College Grant. You can still come back to Washington and receive the Washington College Grant. To be a Washington resident, you have to live in Washington for 1 year, but there are different rules for military depending on what your house of record is. And so the other piece I want to encourage you is apply for scholarships. There's lots for military families. If you are receiving a post 9/11 GI Bill that's been handed down to you from a family member, that is awesome. Still apply for financial aid. The post 9/11 GI Bill only offers $300 for textbooks per year, and that's not enough to pay for your books. And my personal belief is that when you receive post 9/11 or any other GI Bill, that you should be getting full coverage. And so to do that, you have to apply for state funding. The other thing is if you know you want to go to grad school, apply for federal and state aid first. Use Uncle Sam's money before you go off and use the post 9/11 GI Bill, because undergraduate degrees, there's so much funding for, but when you go to grad school, it's more like, now it's loan time. If you use state and federal funding through FAFSA or WAFSA, and then you go ahead and finish your bachelor's with those funds, you can use your post 9/11 to pay for your graduate school, and you can graduate relatively debt-free. Are there any recommendations for a senior in an IB school? There may be some specific scholarships. The other thing is, if you are looking at competitive schools, they may have you fill out an additional form called a CSS profile to assess you for additional funds as well. Okay. If my family income was lower in 2020 than 2019 and filling out the FAFSA, the result was the income was too high for college bound. Can I get college bound? My family updated the income in some way. Yes. If your family's income has decreased, number one, I am sorry to hear that. It is not very common. It's affected a lot of us, especially with furloughs. It may not even be a full layoff, but there's furloughs, things like that. If that's occurring in your family's income, you want to reach out to the colleges and let them know. They can reassess your award. So they're going to send you the first one and they're going to say, oh, this is what we're offering you. But you're going to reach out to the college and say, actually, our income has changed. And then they're going to assess you on your ability to pay right now versus last year. Okay, I'm going to look at that was our Q&A. Let me look at the chat real quick. Scrolling through.
Here's one I found. What was the income level for college bound?
It depends on the size of your family. So there is a income chart on the first link that I gave you is in this chat here is the college bound website, and the chart is in there.
Yeah, I can post the link again, or if they can't find that one, I can just post it again.
Okay, the scholarship. Okay, that's a different one. Okay. What if you're planning on moving in another state? Same thing. You'll apply for the FAFSA and always check for scholarships at your school that you're going to go to.
Here's another one. Do you know of any women-specific scholarships?
I do. There are lots of scholarships for women, especially women in non-traditional fields. If you are going into an apprenticeship, let me tell you, the Washington College Grant also covers apprenticeships. And not only do apprenticeship pools, are they smaller for women specifically, there are funds additional scholarship wise. I had a student a couple years ago get an entire welding setup through a scholarship. Welding leathers, welding gloves. She was like, I don't know, this is a pretty heavy jacket. We're good. I'm like, that's fire. You need actual welding leathers. She got all the proper tools she needed off of a scholarship. And so there are lots. When you go into the scholarship, different warehouses like the washboard, it will ask your gender, and you can list if you want. It asks, it's optional, and so you can go ahead and do that.
Another one is, what is a CSS profile?
A CSS profile is through the College Board, the same people that bring you the SAT. And what it does is it assesses more in depth your family's assets and ability to pay for college. So it's like the FAFSA or the WAFSA, but it asks more questions. Now, the difference is it costs money. If you received a waiver for, let's see, admissions or like an SAT waiver, you'll typically qualify for a CSS profile waiver. If not, it's $25 for your initial application, and it's $15 to send a report to each school.
Do full ride scholarships cover all expenses like tuition, books, fees, dorms, etc., or does it depend on something?
When they say full ride, I feel like that's a subjective term. Like some people are like, full ride, we got you some tuition, that's close enough. And so I don't find as many full ride that cover specifically dorms, room and board. And so when you see a full ride scholarship, you want to see what that is inclusive of when they say full ride. So I'll have students who will tell me like, I got a full ride. And then I look at their award letter and I'm like, ooh, but you have a loan in here. And if it's a full ride, you don't need to take out loans. So just go ahead and check the scholarship and it should tell you.
There's a couple questions here about college-bound application, when to apply and how to apply.
So the college-bound scholarship is something that you apply for in middle school. So if you haven't applied yet and you're a senior, either you need like a time turner or a DeLorean, something to change time, and that doesn't exist. But it's something you sign up for in 7th or 8th grade. You have to meet income guidelines. And then when you are a senior in high school, you're going to do the pledge items that Josh talked about. So it's something that you sign up in middle school.
So some parents may have a middle schooler. Yes,
but
Josh.
there's the Washington College Grant. There's the
Yes.
Washington College Grant. If you did not sign up for College Bound, there's the Washington College Grant. So it's extremely important that you also know that too.
The other piece is if you have ever been in foster care after the age of 13 and you're in high school now and you didn't get a chance to sign up, you've been automatically enrolled in the program. So you didn't have an opportunity to, so we just enrolled you anyway. So, and that information's that over. And also if you don't remember, you're like, I can't remember what I did in middle school. No problem. I can barely remember what I did last week. So you're gonna reach out to your counselor and they'll let you know if you are a college-bound student or not.
So this is a good one. How long does it take to get a reply on your FAFSA in order to know what you qualify for?
So for the FAFSA, when you submit it, it takes 3 days for them to process it. And then from there, where it goes is then they send all of that information to the colleges that you listed. Those colleges take that information and they take your admissions application to see if you've been admitted, and they create what's called an award letter. This process can take a little time. Some of our schools, you will see award letters in March. Some of our schools, you'll see award letters in August. It really can vary. Now, when you get those award letters, don't worry, we'll have some workshops coming up statewide to help you understand your award letters, but it takes a little time. Just make sure that your application's been submitted and that it's been submitted correctly. So if they say, oh, you have some errors you need to fix, then you have to do that before they can let you know how much they can offer you.
There was a question earlier, and I don't know if we answered it. So just in case there's someone missed it, a parent is asking, how do I know if I should apply for the FAFSA or the WASFA?
That's a great question. So the FAFSA is the federal application. Typically, if you have a social security number or from a freely associated state like Marshall Islands, you're going to apply for the FAFSA. If you don't have a social security number or you have expired or unexpired DACA, you're going to apply for the WAFSA. If you're a permanent resident and you have a permanent resident card, some people affectionately call it the green card, even though we know not all of those cards are green, you're going to apply for the FAFSA.
Also, too, when I put the link for the WASFA application, it takes you to like a quick questionnaire to make sure you're filling out the right application. So it's in that under the WASFA, it's the link is that it'll take you right to there. And then if you answer that question, yes or no, it'll determine what you need to do.
Yeah, so that's, if you're not sure, go ahead and take that assessment. Never assume which one you're going to do, and then you just do the application you qualify for. Only do one. When you do two, all you're going to do is give me more of these gray hairs as I try to figure out which application you were trying to do in the first place.
All right. Diane, do you see any that, oh, here's one. Sorry, this just came in. If there is more than one child attending college, how does the FAFSA work?
Works even more awesome. What happens is you'll list the number of people in your household, and then it's going to ask you to list the number of people going to college. So when you have more than one student, it's going to split some of that income because you have more than one student to pay for. So you always want to make sure you're including family members in your household as listed in the FAFSA that are going to college.
And would that also include if a parent is attending college?
So the parent will be included in the parent's household, yes.
Okay. If the taxes from last year are not processed correctly through the IRS, does it affect my application from FAFSA?
So when you apply for FAFSA, if your taxes are incorrect, and I had actually had this happen last week with a person I was helping. If you notice there's an error in your taxes, what you want to do is don't import your taxes through what's called the data retrieval tool. It's a tool that imports stuff from the IRS into your application. You're going to put the accurate amount that you have, and then you're going to follow up with the IRS to make sure, because I mean, depending on how those numbers go, they could owe you some money. That was the case for the student I was working with, is they ended up actually getting some money back from the IRS because of a zero was misplaced. So you just want to make sure you put in the correct information when you do the FAFSA, and then submit it that way.
Another great question. Does a trade school or vocational college count as someone going to college?
Yes. Oh my goodness. So when I say college, I mean anything that's going to lead to your post-secondary pathway, any training. And so of course that means trade schools. As someone who worked at a community college in a technical program for 15 years, who had to have a trade before she could have a degree, I love our technical schools and our colleges. It's about finding the pathway for you. Not everyone's going to need a bachelor's degree. It's about finding what you love to do that earns a little wage and getting that training. So always, yes, that means college.
Great. And then also you had included what are the eligible schools that do take that. And I thought that was wonderful because some are non-traditional. And so please look at that list because it may spark a student's interest in where they want to go to learn more, I guess.
And I see one just came into the Q&A. I'm looking at both the chat and the Q&A.
Yeah.
Oh, if you decide to apply for additional schools, non the FAFSA, you have to update your FAFSA. Yes, they won't automatically add it. So if you're like, oh my gosh, I went on a campus tour and I want to go to this school, no problem. The first thing you're going to do is go on the FAFSA website or the WAPSA, and you're going to do a correction, and you're going to add schools. You can add up to 10. And so if you find a school that you love, just add it and resubmit the application.
This one from the chat, with applying and adding in children from the home, is there an age limit that they have to be to add them in? Or for example, she has a 16-year-old and a 6-year-old.
Those will both be children in your household. And so if you have, I mean, the 6-year-old may not be going to college right now, although they may be. And so you won't list them as going to college, but you're going to list them as members of your household. I see another one in the Q&A. Let's see here. Oh, so it sounds like there have been some challenges that have kept you from being able to have the grades that you want, but you're doing better your senior year, which is awesome. And so is it going to hurt your chances for scholarships? As someone who did not have the best GPA and potentially maybe the lowest GPA, I still got scholarships. You may not qualify for some of the merit ones, but they're going to look at your academic record over time. Same thing with admissions. So when they see, oh my goodness, you weren't doing as well, now you're doing really well, they're going to ask, what's changed? And that might be some of the things they ask in admissions, but you'll want to still apply for scholarships. It may impact a little bit of your chances for merit, but when you go to college, this is the best thing. You're resetting your GPA. It's a clean slate for you. So you're going to start, I always tell students, when you start college, you start with a 4.0. And so you want to make sure you're going to keep that new GPA, and you're going to advocate for yourself to make sure you have everything you need to be successful.
I will also add to that sometimes when students have had some challenges and they've overcome that, that makes for a great essay. And that shows the college that you are resilient, you're going to stick with it, and those are the kind of kids they want. So use your life experiences to help show all of these great things that you are. And so you can use those life experiences in an essay.
Yes, I think that's when I was in school, and at the second year when I started college and my GPA changed so drastically from high school, that's when I really started seeing people ask what changed. well, I had everything I loved in college. Like I could take the classes I wanted at the time of day I wanted, and I found what I loved. And so it really changed. And then my second year, my sophomore year, the scholarships just took off after that. I see a question. I'm a junior and I didn't sign up for the college bound scholarship in middle school. Can I still apply for it? Unfortunately, you can't, but you can apply for the Washington College grant still. And then the last one I see in the Q&A is I'm hearing a lot about scholarships in Washington colleges, but I'm planning to go like to the East Coast. Can I find scholarships that are given in a different state? Of course. So if you're going back east, no problem. You probably need a snowsuit right now. But there are lots of scholarships that are national, and then you want to check the schools that you're going to for their scholarships as well.
All right, I think we
got through all of them.
Of great information, and there's a lot of wonderful information in the chat. One of the questions that was asked, how do I find this or previous Zoom Parent Academy nights that you've done? And those are going to be available on your school website. So click on the news portion on your school website to see the recordings of past events we've done. And this is where we will post this recording. We have a district YouTube channel, and so you will be able to see the recording in case you missed the beginning part, or if you wanted to tell a friend who wasn't able to attend tonight. But at this point, I do want to say a huge thank you to Christina and to Josh. You gave us some wonderful, wonderful information, lots of resources. I think many of our students and families have some homework, I think, ahead over the break. But the great news is we're soon going to have a break, and you'll have that time to do that. This is a wonderful opportunity, so I hope students do take advantage of the time they have to maybe make their lists and get prepared. We specifically wanted to have this evening before the end of the school year, before the end of the year, because there will be deadlines coming up soon. So please do your research, make your list, know your deadlines, all of that. It was really great information. Diane, is there anything that you wanted to add before we say goodnight to everyone?
No, I think this was great information. I appreciate you both helping our families. And I put my email address in the chat, and all of our email addresses in the Q&A. So please contact us if you have questions. Thank you.
I also want to say a great big thank you to our interpreter for this evening, Beatrice. Oh my goodness, she earned her pay in gold, I think, because she did such a great job. So thank you to you, Beatrice. Thank you. She can hear me, but I can't hear her since she is interpreting. All right, I think that's it. Be safe, everyone. Thank you again for attending tonight. We are going to have upcoming meetings just like this, Zoom meetings, to give you more information. In fact, we're working on one for January, and we're still working on the title, but something about going to school military style. So if ROTC scholarships or joining the military, or maybe you have an opportunity to use a GI Bill from your folks, that information will be happening in January. We don't have a date yet, but when we do get it, we'll send it out just like this. So watch social media and listen to your school counselors. Again, if you have questions, your school counselors and your career specialists are really great helpers, and they can help walk you through it. So I think that's it from us. So good night, everyone. I hope you have wonderful holidays. Stay safe. And again, Josh and Christina and Beatrice, thank you so much. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Happy hunting.
Everybody, happy holidays.
Yes, great.